Hey everyone, welcome to Dr. Lisa Salcenti's podcast. And today we are going to talk about 3 of the root causes of health problems, chronic health diseases, health issues. And we're basically looking at functional medicine here. So if you're not too sure what functional medicine is, please go to the podcast before this and I talk about functional medicine and how it differs from the medical model and how it's sometimes similar, but really the fact that we are really looking for the root cause of things and how we do that. So you can understand functional medicine and where I'm coming from in the angle of the next couple podcasts. Oh, to start off, we are starting our season 4, yay, of the podcast. So I'm so happy. And if you are new to my podcast, please go back to season 1 and season 2 and 3. That's just jam-packed with so much functional medicine information for you. This is a great place. I've created the podcast so you can have an affordable, easy, free place to get some functional medicine information. And possibly you could work, on yourself through some things we talk about. Although we always have to pause and say this isn't a podcast for treating or curing anything. This is just educational information. So you might learn something and bring it to your doctor or implement it. But this isn't a treatment plan, of course. This is educational. So let's get into this. So what is this about? We're going to start this series called Discovering the Root Cause, where we're going to dive deep into some of the root causes of health issues. And each episode is going to focus on 3 key pillars. So we're going to talk about inflammation in this podcast. And the next one's going to be imbalances and deficiencies in the body. And then the third one's going to be toxins. So this is going to be really, really, really fun. So let's get started about inflammation and what that is. So this is the Discovering the Root Cause series, and this is going to be about this interesting phenomenon we call inflammation. It really is the body's intelligent way of protecting itself. It's not a bad thing when it's short term, right? So for example, when you sprain your ankle, the surrounding tissue and joints will become swollen. We know that, right? Jam your finger, you can see inflammation when the finger gets swollen. And this inflammatory process that actually protects the ankle from movement, right? If you are injured, let's say the ankle, God forbid the bone, any ligament or tendons, the body wants you not to move so you don't potentially create more harm to the area. And this process also gives time for the immune system to come in and clean up any of the debris of the injury. So you're going to have old cells in there and water and things dying and new cells being able to grow. It's going to be able to be a time to bring in, micronutrients, your vitamins, your minerals. So it's really an amazing healing power of the body, right? So the underlying tone of functional medicine and even chiropractic is that the body has this innate intelligence and the ability to heal itself. And so we're looking at where in these systems of the body is something not working, and how can we get to this root cause of this problem that you might be having and not just managing symptoms. So that's really what, in a really quick answer of what functional medicine is. It's a holistic, personalized approach to your body chemistry and your metabolic mechanisms of the body. So inflammation, though, when it becomes chronic, can be quite invasive, and that's the bad thing. So something that the body has created to protect you and is a very healthy response in an impossible acute situation, when it becomes chronic, it can cause imbalances within many of these systems in the body. So for example, inflammation in the gut can cause symptoms such as reflux, GERD, the bloating, the stomach pain, the gas, the constipation, the diarrhea, right? And if the inflammation leaves the gut and gets into the bloodstream, it can cause other health issues throughout the body depending upon where it goes. So inflammation, chronic over time, isn't really a good thing. And what causes inflammation? And that's the part that I want you really to hit home today. And if you're going to learn anything from this podcast, this is what I want you to learn, is that a lot of functional doctors and regular doctors, you'll go to these seminars and you'll listen to them speak and you'll get some great information from people of all different, professions. And a lot of them will say inflammation is the cause of, any disease. Like, it's just the cause. It's always there. And they'll tell you, I've heard them say that, even when we die, inflammation will be present. So you're going to die with inflammation. And so no matter what illness you have or what you die from inflammation is there. But it leads me personally to the question, as a professional and a personal, like, what's going on with my body? What causes inflammation in the first place? And that's the question I want to address today, is what causes it? So we understand that, with the ankle injury, it was a physical injury to the body, right? So it's protecting it. So most likely the inflammation is caused by the injury in that case. But what goes on with all these other things that we get, or how we feel, or these symptoms that come up that we diagnose as illnesses or diseases? And the next question I'm going to ask is, okay, if we can determine the cause of the body's inflammation, can we reverse the illness that's connected to it? Can we fix the body system that is off and ultimately take away some of these symptoms that the body's experience? So that's really interesting, right? So let me go back on that, because I really want you to take a lot from this podcast right here. The first question is, what causes the inflammation in the first place? And if we can determine that, can we reverse the symptoms and the illness that's connected to it? Right? And although inflammation may be the beginning of the process of a disease, that's for sure, because that's what a lot of these, a lot of doctors and practitioners talk about, is that it's there, right? It's there when you have the illness, it's there when you die. So they feel that the direct cause of the disease process is inflammation. And although I believe that it is there, obviously, in the beginning of the process, I do believe determining the cause is key if you want to reverse the disease. And in my practice, I work with you to find the cause of your health concern, and I use inflammation as a compass to direct us. So it's a little bit different at what I do. I'm looking for the root cause of your health concern for sure, and I am going to use inflammation as the buoy or the compass to point me in the right direction. However, I use it more as a marker. I know it's present. I understand inflammation usually starts, and why we all talk about it in functional, because once you have inflammation, what it next might lead to is something called oxidation, which is where we start getting cellular confusion. And after cellular confusion, that basically means your cells might start not functioning the way they should. Cells come together, right? And they're going to form systems, and they're going to form tissues. And so now what happens? Inflammation's present first. We sometimes get this inflammatory process. We'll get this oxidation process, is where sometimes we start creating cellular confusion. Free radicals are a word that you might hear that get released. But really what starts happening is slowly cellular death, and that's what it leads to. So inflammation does cause that cellular death, that cellular confusion. Now, I want to get into a little bit about the causes of inflammation, but I want you to understand, when I mention cellular death, you're like, well, what is that? Well, cells do die, and again, that's another good thing that the body does to protect itself. If not, we'd have all these dead cells not working properly, hanging out, and really we'd probably degrade much faster. So we have this process in the body where cells will, die, and some slough off, and we have a system in the body, this innate intelligence that will come in and clean it up, and actually we have, cell birth. But this mechanism can't get confused. And a lot of times that's really the root cause of the diseases, is this cellular confusion, which is caused by inflammation. So that's that thinking. For example, I'm going to give you a very short one, and I'm going to use the thyroid as an example because I have that, so I can speak from professional, personal experience right here on the podcast, is I have a big goiter in my thyroid, but what happens before that is inflammation. And when inflammation starts occurring, for some reason, the body started attacking the actual thyroid tissue. The cells inside in the thyroid start not performing the job as thyroid cells, and they start getting filled up with blood cells, white blood cells. So what's happening is the body, for some reason, feels like the thyroid cells or tissue are foreign. They start attacking it, and the cells become, yes, inflamed, but they become full of white blood cells. And God forbid, sometimes there's cancer cells in there, right? And so the cell death begins. The cell starts changing and functioning improperly. So this is how we get some bad things. So sometimes inflammation will lead to that cellular confusion. What does that look like in a symptom? You might have cysts, you might have calcifications, you might have a tumor or a goiter or a mass that can be benign, like mine. Mine's benign because it's full of white blood cells and not cancer cells. But then you can have cancer. So there's something causing these things. That's the point I really want you to walk away with. Inflammation is definitely causing the cells to get confused and the cells to change, for sure. But what is causing the inflammation? Is inflammation the cause of your health issue? And what could you do about this? So that's going to bring us to break down inflammation a little bit in the remaining of this podcast. And I hope you're finding this fascinating because I sure do. I just love this conversation. So some things, there could be other causes of inflammation, but one of the main things that I do as a functional medicine practitioner is, a leaky gut. And that's a really big cause of inflammation in the body because the gut itself is 20-something feet long. So it's this huge surface area inside your body. It's huge. You're not that tall. It's all, rolled up in there. The skin, you can see it all over your body, is the largest surface area outside the body. So what they usually say is like, oh, the gut is one of the biggest organs inside the body and the skin is a big organ outside the body. But it's surface area. It's like how much does it take up of your body? So the gut itself is humongous and it is permeable. That's really important and that's a good thing because it's not like a solid tubing system. It's not like, it's not like your pipes that are solid. It is permeable. It's sponge-like. Things can leave the gut and get into the bloodstream. And we have this mechanism that is an innate mechanism that is beautiful. The body has set up a mechanism in the gut wall where only good things can leave the gut. So what leaves the gut? Your body, your digestive tract, your gut, its purpose is digestion. So your body is going to take the food that you choose to eat and it's going to break it down and it's going to get rid of the things in the food it doesn't need. And it's going to focus on the things it does need. So it's going to take your vitamins, your minerals. It's going to take amino acids, antioxidants, all these wonderful things. And it's going to allow some of them to cross and leave. We say cross the blood barrier. So they're going to go through the gut wall and they're going to leave the gut and go into the blood. So there's this barrier in the gut wall called the gut-blood barrier, and that means on one side is the gut and on the other side is the bloodstream. And so you have this beautiful mechanism that when it works properly, it only allows good things to leave the gut and get into the bloodstream. Now, just like everything else in the body, when it's not working properly, it doesn't do well for you. So when the gut wall is dysfunctioning and not working properly, it becomes too permeable. So it's allowing things to leave that should not leave. It's allowing things that should just go along the tubing and just leave the body, through excretion. But what happens is the gut wall now isn't working properly. It is inflamed and the cells start not functioning right. And that's where we're going to get this cellular confusion. And so, right, sometimes, it gets bad because you can start damaging that gut wall physically. So now the cells, the first thing is they're not going to work properly and they're going to let bad things out. Those bad things get into the bloodstream and they're inflammatory. So the inflammation that starts in the gut, which is a huge surface area inside your body, can now get out into the bloodstream and go throughout the whole body. Do you see where inflammation can be the cause of other health issues? But you have to ask yourself, where did the inflammation come from? As a functional medicine practitioner, because the gut is this big surface area of the body, it's the first place I go. And I go in there and I look at the inflammatory markers, and then I have to say to myself, what is causing the inflammation in this patient's gut, and what is causing this inflammatory process to ruin the gut wall where it doesn't work properly? What is breaking down this beautiful system of keeping the bad things in and letting only the good things out? And this is, believe me, I learned this over the last 10 years of working with patients of all different types of health problems. And in my own family, because that's how this started, if you know my story. I started with my son and myself, and then we moved it into the practice because we got such great results. But what I noticed, and what I was also taught, you're taught this, but you don't really, it's not tangible until you do it and bring it into your practice and you see it work clinically with patient after patient after patient after, and that's when you're like, aha, the aha moment, wow. So what I'm trying to say to you is that we've got these health issues, these patients that come with all different types of things, and we don't do the same thing with every patient, but if we start in the gut and we ask ourselves, what is in here that is causing this patient's gut wall to not work properly? What is going on here that's causing the inflammation? And if I can remove that factor, then the inflammation stops. So inflammation is definitely linked to diseases. They're not wrong when they say, if someone is sick, they have inflammation. If someone dies, they're going to die with inflammation. We get that. But I like to go deeper, so I always say to people, if you're my patient, you know this, think of an iceberg, and inflammation is definitely, for me, the tip of it. People are going to say it's probably the bottom underneath, but I'm saying it's a tip because we can test a lot of markers for inflammation. So you might be a buoy in the water going, hey, something's going on here. And what you and I would do is dive deep, put on our scuba gear and dive deep and look underneath what is in here, what's going on, what's causing the inflammation. So in the gut wall, that's what I do. I go in and I say, hey, what's causing the inflammation? What's causing the cells in the gut to not function properly? Why is this patient's gut allowing bad things to get out? Now, you're going to say to me, what gets out? Like, oh my gosh, what could get out? Well, food particles or little proteins actually can get out. And once you get little food proteins in your bloodstream, guess what happens? Your body attacks it because that's not supposed to be there. Again, you have another beautiful mechanism called the immune system that is innate. And once it sees something in the blood that should not be in the blood, it's going to attack it. And this is what we talk about, chronic inflammation. So let's say whatever's causing the inflammation, let's say it's food, something you're eating, and you keep eating it because you don't know. And then every time you eat it, the gut wall attacks it. And let's say those cells get damaged. Now the gut wall is not working properly. Now this inflammatory process that is attacking the gut wall is going to actually get in the bloodstream. So one, you have cytokines and you have inflammatory particles and you have histamine, you have all stuff floating around the blood. So now you have that problem. The other thing that could happen, like if you get some food peptides or little proteins coming out that shouldn't, because you should just get that through the body, now your body's going to attack that. So you've got that inflammatory immune system response. That's more cytokines and more histamine. You could have a bacteria leave the gut, and bacteria sometimes when it leaves the gut will produce toxins, and we call that endotoxemia. So now you might have bacteria and toxins in the bloodstream. You know what's going to go out there? Yeah, the immune system's going to respond, but you know what else is going to respond? Cholesterol. They're going to send cholesterol out there to clean up the bacteria and the toxins. So now your cholesterol is going to go up. You're inflamed, so now that your C-reactive protein might go up, your homocysteine might go up, your LDLs might go up, your cholesterol might go up, because now you've got this stuff floating around in your bloodstream. You might actually start getting autoimmune markers, right? Because now you've got that type of thing going on, because this inflammation could attack the joints, it could attack the thyroid, right? It could attack the ovaries, it can go into the brain. Now the brain has a blood barrier, and things aren't so only certain things are supposed to go across that barrier into the brain. So we don't want inflammatory particles into the brain. This is what we see a lot with Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, dementia. We see this with the autism spectrum disorders, things getting into that blood-brain barrier that shouldn't. So I know I'm talking about a lot, but your symptoms that start in the stomach, don't ignore those. You don't have to have stomach symptoms or digestive symptoms to not have. You could still have a leaky gut and not have them. I've seen that with people, and it's strange, but some people don't have digestive symptoms. They still can have a leaky gut. They still can have inflammation spreading through the body and causing health diseases or health issues. But if you do have them, you need to pay attention to them. Reflux, GERD, bloating, stomach pain, gas, constipation, diarrhea. If you have diverticulitis, losis, colitis, any of the itis, if you've been diagnosed with any of these things, you need to pay attention, because what that is doing, something's causing that. First of all, you need to work with a functional medicine practitioner to find out the root cause and remove that. But that process, that inflammatory chronic process, is definitely damaging structures. Now, physically, when you have physical damage, the gut wall doesn't work properly, but you can also have infections along the line, like diverticulitis and locis, and you can have inflammation there. You could have gastritis. You could have polyps, right? Polyps can form and create havoc and, God forbid, cancers. Because what happens is those cells making up your, lining can start doing cellular death and cellular confusion. So I always promise to do, keep these podcasts at 20 minutes. So I just want to wrap this up with saying that infections can also, cause inflammation in the body. So, like Lyme's and different things like Epstein-Barr, these are things we know that can stay in the body and cause inflammation and cause problems. And so, your diet can cause inflammation. So you're going to ask me what causes leaky gut, and that I definitely, if you go back to season 1, I talk about that. But because it's so far back and I don't want to just brush over it, I'm going to just give you a really short thing. Your diet is super important to the health of your body. It's directly linked. So you do have to look at toxins, which we're going to talk about next podcast, so please listen. I think it's the third podcast, because this is a podcast of 3 series. So this is about inflammation, so you can understand it more, and then we're going to move into imbalances and deficiencies. So I'll talk a little bit more about that, and diet and vitamins and things like that, and we'll talk about toxins and things like that. So the diet's going to get important as we move into the next 2 series. So you're eating healthy is really going to be key. But we are all about discovering the root causes. So inflammation, for me, I look at food sensitivities for one thing. What is the gut attacking? What foods does the patient need to remove? I will be looking at if there's a gut pathogen in the gut. So we're looking for fungus, parasites, bacteria, viruses, these infections that could be in there. I also will be, of course, looking for a leaky gut and a gut wall that doesn't work properly, but I want to look for the cause of that. So I really go to food sensitivities and gut pathogens. I also look at the gut microbiome and look for a dysbiosis, which is a fancy word for an imbalance of the good bacteria in your gut. Do I have an overgrowth, or I call it an undergrowth? What type of imbalance do I have in the gut that we need to fix with? What we do is we work really hard to match the gut imbalance to the right probiotics. So that's really important to have the correct probiotic that will fix your gut imbalance. So there's really the 3 key pillars to what's causing the inflammation in your gut, and why the gut wall isn't working properly, and why this inflammation could be spreading throughout the body and causing all these other problems. We also will be talking about toxins. And when we look at hormonal imbalances, I still go to the gut. When I look at thyroid problems, I still go to the gut. When I look at RA, we still go to the gut. When I look at any kind of autoimmune, I still go to the gut. So that's all reverse engineering. So here's the disease, let's go to the gut. And I look for food sensitivities, these pathogens, and this gut dysbiosis are the 3 things I really look at. But we also will talk about food and toxins and imbalances and deficiencies in the next episode. So I hope you enjoyed this, and remember that this is educational for you and not meant to treat any illnesses that you have. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to me anytime. And the best thing to do is to book a consultation with me so we can review your health questions and your health concerns. Have a great day.